Alrighty, hi everyone, back again. It's me, Megan, and Loki is laying right back here. He's just kind of chilling right now. We were just outside and enjoying the absolutely beautiful weather here, and so we came back in. He got a little warm, so got rehydrated, and he's now just chilling here on the bed with me. So today's video, I've gotten a lot of questions, and it hasn't been necessarily from YouTube or anything like that, but I'm in a couple service dog groups on Facebook, and I've gotten a couple questions from those groups on with people who are new to the service dog community and people who just don't know how to go about getting a service dog. So today's video is going to be all about how to get your service dog, and this was a very similar way to the way I got Loki Dokes. So without further ado, here we go. Alright, step one, you need to be disabled according to the ADA. Now the ADA is what protects us, and it's called the Americans with Disabilities Act. And basically it says that we can use the service dog as a medical device in place of other forms of treatment. So if you have any questions about like service dogs or like the laws that go with service dogs, I'll put the link to their website right here. So that's the ADA. So you need to be disabled according to the ADA. Now you can go look up the specific wording that they use, but basically the way that I understood it was you have a disability that is impacting your ability to live a normal life, right? So like for me, part of my mobility issues are with my knees, and without Loki, stairs are nigh impossible. So I moved the camera so that hopefully it's not shaking as bad with his panting, but you never know. Okay, so you need to be disabled in a way that impedes you living normal everyday life. Alright, and just because that you're technically disabled, it doesn't mean that a service dog is right for your disability. So this is where the next step comes in. So if you think that you're disabled enough that a service dog might be able to help you, the next step is going and talking to your doctor. Your doctor will be able to tell you if a service dog is right for your disability and if they think that the dog could really help mitigate the disability, or if they said, well, let's try another form of treatment. I went through multiple rounds of physical therapy and surgeries to try and correct my problems before I ever had Loki or even considered getting a service dog. So, I don't think they should be your first form of treatment. I think you should try other things just because they are such a time commitment. They're such a lifestyle change, and I think it's really important to try other avenues that are less life-changing than having a service dog. So don't let it be your first form of treatment. But let's say you're disabled according to the ADA. You go and talk to your doctor, and they say, yes, I think that a service dog could work really, really well for you, and what's your next step? So your next step is, first of all, making a list of tasks that you think that your dog could help mitigate your disability with. So like for me, he does bracing and momentum pulling and item retrieval. Those are his main tasks. Now he has a couple others, but those are the ones that he uses every single day, especially the momentum pulling, all day, every day. So, make a list of tasks that you think the dog could be trained to do to help mitigate your disability. That's step one. Step two, after you make your list, decide if you want to go with a large breed or a small breed. Now, if you're going for mobility work, like Loki is a mobility dog and he does heavy mobility work, that's with the bracing and everything like that. So if you're going with heavy mobility work, the dog needs to be at least half of your weight, and they have to have a certain height requirement comparatively to you to keep the dog safe. So you need to assess if the tasks that you're asking your dog to do need a larger dog, or if they need a medium dog or a small dog. So, kind of work that out for yourself. Do not just say, oh, I really love German Shepherds. So I'm going to get a German Shepherd and hope that it works out. That's not how it works, unfortunately. You need to put your needs before the breed. So you need to decide what you need to train the dog to do, and then do your research on the different dog breeds and see which breed's going to fit you. Now they're called, I think, the Magical Four, the Golden Four, for service dogs. You know, number one being a Golden Retriever, Poodles, German Shepherds, and Collies, the rough Collies, the big poofy ones. So I'll put a picture of all those breeds as we go. So, you know, Golden Retrievers are great for mobility work. They are a large dog. So they're pretty good for mobility work. They're not quite as tall as some of the other dogs, but they are really even-tempered. They're great as psychiatric service dogs, mobility dogs, guide dogs for the blind. You know, they're really, really wonderful. Poodles are the same as Golden Retrievers in, you know, their temperament. They're extremely smart. They can think for themselves, which makes a great psychiatric dog. And they do make good mobility dogs, although I would maybe stray a little bit away from the Poodles just because they are a little bit more slight in frame, and they aren't quite as heavy as the Golden Retrievers. German Shepherds, wonderful, wonderful mobility dogs. You know, Loki does work for me every day, and he loves it. So wonderful mobility dogs. For psychiatric service dogs, they can be okay, but there are a lot of German Shepherds that wash in the psychiatric dogs service area just because they tend to feed off of their owner's emotions. So like if the handler has, you know, PTSD or some anxiety disorder, and maybe they get anxious in a crowd, then every time you go into a crowd, you start to feel anxious, and the dog feeds off of that. So eventually, they could start getting anxious in a crowd. Now, with the correct training, you can stop that from happening, but I'm just fair warning, which is why most people don't use German Shepherds for psychiatric work, but it's not impossible because we have one. And the last dog is the standard collie, or the rough collie, standard collie, the rough collie. They are also great for mobility work. Are these the only 4 breeds of dogs that you can use for a service dog? No, you can use any dog. Loki is a shelter dog, so I had him since he was about 1.5 years old. He's 6 now. So about 4.5 years. Wow, that's crazy. So, you know, you can go to a shelter and adopt a dog, but if you're going to go that route, I would highly, highly recommend bringing a dog trainer with you if you're going to go to the adoption route and shelter route. Now, otherwise, you can go to, on the breeder side of things, find a reputable breeder that has had service dogs in the litter before. That will give you the highest chance of the most even-tempered, well-mannered, you know, smartest dog breed or smartest pick of the litter, so that they will catch on to what you're asking them to do quickly. And you know that it's in their genetics to do service work, which is great. So those are your 2 options in the way of getting a dog. You can either get a dog from a breeder, or you can get a dog from a shelter. Either way is fine. Okay. Training. There are a couple different ways that you can do this. Finding a trainer is tough, but could be worth it in the end. If you are new to dogs, so if your family has not owned dogs, you have not trained dogs before, I highly recommend finding a professional trainer to either help you own or train the dog, or find a program and give the dog to a program, and the program trains the dog. Now, there are a couple pros and cons to this. With owner training, you are taking part in every single step of your dog's training. So you know exactly what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what they need to work on, what things they're going to struggle with, and what things they're going to excel at. Whereas if you ship your dog off to a program, you're not going to know that as much. Other side, flip side. So program dogs. Normally they guarantee the training. So if your dog starts to maybe like lose the tight heel that he had, or maybe some of the tasks are getting a little bit rusty, you can always send them back and they'll retrain the dog. So that's another perk. With owner training, it can be just as expensive as a program dog, but I mean, program dogs can go anywhere from $8,000 all the way up to $50,000. You know, they are extremely expensive. You know, with Loki and all the training that we've done, it's probably been about $5,000 to $6,000 that we spent on training. So we have had some professional help, and that was mainly for his obedience tasks at the very beginning when I first adopted him from the shelter. You know, his obedience was not good. And I did not adopt him to be a service dog. I adopted him so that I could have a pet. And so I put a lot of work into him for his obedience work. We passed our Canine Good Citizens. And then I was recommended to have a service dog by my doctor. So we started training him up after I got him reassessed and reevaluated by professional trainers and behaviorists, and who said, yes, he is stable, and yes, he is able to continue with service work. So if you have a pre-existing pet in the home who is pretty young, I would say if they're any older than 2 years old, please don't start training them for service work, just because of the working life of the dog. You know, you're not going to get a whole lot of bang for your buck on that. But anyway, okay. So owner training, program training, we went over that a little bit. So another aspect to consider. So let's say, okay, you're considered disabled by the ADA. Your doctor says, yeah, I think this could work. You have a list of tasks and you have a dog picked out. What's next? You need to be ready for a lifestyle change. You know, these guys are dogs that, and especially working dogs, if they are not worked, they find a job. And normally that job is not something you like, or maybe your couch doesn't like, you know, or your shoes, whatever. They'll find a job, something to keep them busy. So these guys are expensive. You know, with Loki here, we had him cleared medically by orthopedic vets to say that his hips were good, his elbows were good. You know, he didn't have any kind of restrictions in his movement or any issues that were going to cause him to, you know, drop out of service work early or have to retire early. And, you know, those x-rays and examinations costed a lot. Then we have to keep his, you know, his vaccinations up. And we try and keep him as healthy as humanly possible, so feeding him really, really good dog food. You know, there are a lot of expenses that go into it, not to mention the gear. You know, his harness is quite expensive, so are the leashes and the patches. It's just, everything kind of adds up. So that's one of the biggest lifestyle changes. Time is huge with service dogs. You know, if you're not taking them to a professional groomer to get groomed, you do have to groom the dog. And that means keeping their nails trimmed, keeping their ears clean, keeping their coats clean, because you cannot bring a dirty dog out into public. That's just not a courteous thing to do or a kind thing to do. So make sure that they are presentable at all times, brushing their teeth. You know, with their energy levels, you have to take them on walks if they aren't going to be able to go out into public like we are right now. We're in quarantine. So we're taking these guys on at least one walk, maybe 2 walks a day. Kind of depends on how they're doing after the first walk. You know, and the commitment. You know, you have a partner that's going to be with you for probably the next 12 years or so. So you have a commitment to that dog to do the best you can with them, to give them the best life possible, because they're trying to help to give you your best life possible. And then last thing, so you've got training figured out, you already talked to your doctor, you have a dog picked out that you'd like to have. If you're, you know, a teenager and you've done your homework, which if you're following these steps so far, you have, the next step is to talk with your family. Now, I talked with my family even though I was an adult when I got Loki, just because if something happens to me, I need to know that he's going to be well taken care of. So I needed to make sure that my family was on board. And, you know, with some people not wanting pets in the house or anything like that, realize that he's going to be in the house. And so my family has been amazingly supportive. You know, they've helped us a lot, and they have kept with us through all of our wonderful adventures. So they've done a really, really nice job. helped. If I forgot something, oh, scratch that. Last thing, I know you see advertisements for identification cards on Google or Facebook or Instagram, and they say you can take your dog anywhere. All you've got to do is fill out this information, pay us like $80, and here's your certificate. You can take your dog with you. Don't do it, folks. Loki does not have an identification card. He does not have a piece of paper with his name on it that says, I'm a service dog. He has a vest that says he's a service dog, but he doesn't have to. And I have a leash that has service dog written on it, but it doesn't have to. I could take him out just as he is now without a vest and with just a simple leash on him. That's totally legal. We mainly put the vests on for the public to help people realize that this is not just a pet that's walking in here, that it is a trained service dog. Those identification websites are illegal. There's one, I think it's called the Service Dog Registry of the United States or something like that. That's the most common one that I see. Don't do it. Okay, first of all, it's a waste of your money. Second of all, it's illegal. Whenever you go into a business, they ask 2 questions. Is it a service dog? And what task is it trained to perform? They can't ask for any kind of identification. He tried to eat up a wasp. Look it down. I don't know if it stung him or not. He's fine. So, where's that again? Oh yeah. Identification. They can't ask for it. It's illegal. Don't waste your money on it. Okay. So, I hope this has been helpful. I hope you learned a little something. If you have any other questions, just leave them in the comment section below, or feel free to message me on Instagram. Our Instagram tag is going to be right here. So go follow us there if you aren't already, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye.